Well, hello and welcome to Uncorking a Story. I'm your host, Mike Carlin, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about running because I was inspired on my morning run to do so. How's that for things coming around? Today I'm going to share with you in brief parts of an interview that I did a couple years ago with just a fantastic human being, fellow author, fellow runner, Kevin Knight. But before I get to a little bit of a clip that I have from Kevin, I wanted just to ask you a question. You know, how's 2021 going so far? You know, have all the demons gone away? Is the nightmare over?
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Well, yeah, that's really not how any of this works, is it? We're still living in COVID times, but I do feel that there is hope on the horizon. There's hope out there. Vaccines are coming. Not as fast as we'd like, but they're coming. And for the time being, I'm going to enjoy the extra time that I have with my family because I don't see myself traveling anytime soon. I say that kind of with a smile, but I really do miss, I miss airplanes. I miss running through airports, and I actually miss the stress that brings. But anyway, I just got back from my fourth run of 2021. And I mention that because, you know, again, running is at the core of what I want to talk about today. You know, running has been part of my identity since high school. You know, I joined the cross country team and I did it late. You know, I did it my senior year and not getting involved earlier with the team is actually one of the biggest regrets I have about my high school years. And I have plenty of others and I'll save those for another time. How's that sound? But you know, the first few weeks, I remember like the first few weeks of training were very tough, you know, but I powered through it. You know, I had a great coach, Ray Lipinski. If you're listening, coach, you're the best. And I powered through it. I fell in love with the sport. And not that I was ultra competitive. I wasn't. I'll tell you right now, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, I came in last in all but one race that senior year. And I'll always remember you, Danbury. But my grandmother died my senior year in high school. She died in May. And it was just before graduation. And I remember going on long runs kind of as a way of dealing with the grief I was feeling. I was very, very close with my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother. And there was something about, you know, tying up my shoes. At that time, I was always an evening runner. You know, the sun would go down. I'd put on my my Asics Gel Exalts with the split tongue. And, you know, there was something about the rhythm to it, you know, the pounding, the breathing, you know, I would visualize kind of breathing in, and breathing out, and I could actually see the breath go in and out. It was weird. I used to do this mental thing. I still do it from time to time. And yeah, I could hear my heartbeat. I could feel my heartbeat. I could feel it start to increase. And it was very meditative. For me, it was very meditative. I enjoyed it. I didn't listen to music. You know, it was really just listening to my body and kind of letting my mind wander a little bit. I actually use that a similar approach when I'm experiencing writer's block. I'll go out for a long run, won't listen to music or a podcast, and just see where my subconscious takes me. Anyway, that's what I would do in high school. And when I went to college, you know, I kept running recreationally. My fraternity, Kappa Sigma, love you guys. But we would do this fundraiser every year, which would tie, it was always tied to the UConn-Yale football game. It was called Yale Bowl. So we'd actually start a relay at Gamble Pavilion, which is where the men's and women's basketball team at UConn play. And we'd start there. A brother would hold a football and he would begin running, and others would follow in their cars caravan style. And when that brother got tired, he would pass the football to another who would run with it until they were spent, and so on and so forth. And this went on for 60 miles. You know, it's 60 miles between Gamble Pavilion and the green in New Haven, where we would end the relay. And the first time I did it, we were raising money for the UConn Children's Cancer Fund. And, you know, each brother, you know, to raise the money, we'd ask for friends and family to sponsor us for every mile that we ran. And at the time that, you know, the death of my grandmother was still fresh in my mind, and I was in pretty good shape at the time. So I carried the ball for over 10 miles that day. And it was actually the longest that any of the brothers had done. And it actually earned me the nickname Forrest, as the movie Forrest Gump was out around that time.
Run, Forrest, run!
And I still run to this day, and I still find it therapeutic. It's really the only 1 to 2 hours each day that I truly have to myself. A few months ago, I was actually injured, kind of going back to November. And under doctor's orders, I wasn't allowed to run. And I have to tell you, I was miserable. I could do the elliptical, I could swim. But, if you're a runner, you know that they're just not the same. It's not the same as being outside. It's not the same as being out in the elements. And I realized that this form of exercise, is symbolic, and sometimes I wonder if I'm actually running away from something.
Run away! Run away! Run away!
That one's for you, Tony Bosco. But am I running away from something? Am I suppressing something when I run? I'm certainly no stranger to employing, good old-fashioned defense mechanisms from time to time. But I really don't think that my love of running has anything to do with avoiding something that's unpleasant. For me, it's actually part of my spirituality. And I don't mean that in a religious sense, but it's more of a way that I feel connected to the outside world. Almost 2 years ago, I sat down with a friend of mine, Kevin Knight. We work in the same industry. In addition to both being authors, we were both, you'd call us focus group moderators, although the term is somewhat outdated because not too many focus groups being run in the time of COVID. But he wrote a book about the insights he's had while running barefoot. And you heard that right. He actually runs outdoors in bare feet. And listen into what he has to say about that.
Today, it's really peace of mind. I get to all that stuff that's scrambled up in our head, seems to get straightened out. And for me, it's a bit of a spiritual experience today. Not even a bit, a lot of that. I go out there and I absolutely feel connected to, people would call it differently. I feel connected to God. I feel a connection. And I also feel a connection to, as you know, trees and everything else. But I really feel connected. I feel, and when I come in for my run, I feel empowered. I feel like anything that comes on today, I can handle. Nothing can overwhelm me. And that's peace of mind. That's also, there's just something goes on inside our brain mentally, and I know we have endorphins and all that sort of stuff, but it's a real peace of mind and a strength, a mental strength that you get.
So Kevin, talks about the mental strength, and that's absolutely true. Running it's a very physical thing, right? If you don't have that base physical conditioning, you're not going to be able to run, a half marathon or a full marathon. But there's a mental part to it too. I never thought I could run more than 6 miles at a time, and then I did, and I had that confidence, and then I could run 8 miles, and then I could run 10. And then I could run 13. But I needed, as much as I needed to build up that physical strength, the cardiovascular strength, I also needed to build the mental strength too. But, as I was saying before, running is kind of a spiritual thing for me. It's also a spiritual thing for Kevin. And he talks about it in the interview. And I imagine that it's a spiritual form of exercise for a lot of people. But because how Kevin runs, he runs barefoot. It's also a big conversation starter for people who see him when he's running. He tells the story about how people will stop him when he's running and strike up a conversation with him. He says when he first started doing it, he noticed people who had seen him before, who had never talked to him before, now see that he's running barefoot, and they stop and they talk to him about it. And as a runner, I honestly, I hate it. And I told him in the interview, I hate it when people interrupt me. And part of it is because, I don't feel like I can start up again after I've been stopped, and I get really angry at people. Some people might just be, asking how to get to the Merritt Parkway or something. But and of course I want to be able to help them. But my own personal I guess greediness, or I don't know what the right word is to actually have some resentment towards them. And there's resentment. We talked about that on the last episode, right? So I don't like it when people interrupt me. That's the short story there. But he sees it differently. When people interrupt and stop Kevin, he sees it as a way to connect with them and maybe bring a little bit of something to their life. I really want you to listen into what he has to say here.
At the end of the day, if you can impact someone's life for a moment, for a moment. Maybe connect with them, maybe make them smile, just maybe make them think differently about another human being. And that's it. Because all this other stuff, I mean, you and I would love to change the world, okay? But, if we can change one moment for one person, I think that's pretty special.
I was blown away when he said that to me 2 years ago, and I'm still blown away by it now because he's right. What would happen if we all started thinking, what can I do today to help change a moment for just one person? Certainly there's opportunities to do that all around if we just look for them and just be open to have them come into our lives. It can be as simple as picking up the phone and calling someone you haven't spoken to in a while, or offering some guidance to an employee or coworker, or maybe even just offering to help your own kids with their homework. Kindness is free, and it can change a moment in someone else's life. Now, I want to share a bit of why I even started thinking about this today. I was actually on my own morning run this morning, and I was listening to a podcast. One of my favorite interviewers is a guy by the name of Marc Maron. He's a stand-up comic. Certainly not everyone's cup of tea. And, we certainly don't agree on certain things, but I love his interviewing style. And I guess kind of like Howard Stern, he's able to bring out depth in people. And he does these long form interviews. And this morning he was interviewing the actor Mandy Patinkin.
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Yes, that Mandy Patinkin. He was being interviewed, and he was talking about, his own faith and spirituality. And he was saying, to Mark, the host, that, one of the prayers he says every day is the following. It's God, help me help you in any way I can, in any way imaginable. Now, much like Kevin, I grew up in the Catholic Church and went to Catholic school up until college. And, part of our catechism is to memorize certain prayers. We've got the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the Glory Be, and there's a big one, the Act of Contrition. And there's countless prayers. We've got prayers for everything. We probably even have prayers for people who write prayers. But I have to say, the simplicity of what Mandy Patinkin shared, to me, is just as powerful and as important and meaningful as anything that I had to memorize as a kid. Help me help you in any way I can, in any way imaginable. And, maybe that's, as simple as being put in a place where we can change a moment for just one person, and I guess it all comes back to what Kevin Knight shared. So I guess that's what Kevin and Mandy Patinkin have in common. Anyway, that's our first episode of 2021. Now, listen, if you know anybody in your life who's really into running, please consider gifting them Kevin Knight's book. It's called Connections in the Raw, Musings of a Barefoot Runner. He didn't ask me to do that, by the way. This is a plug, that I feel compelled to provide because it is a great book. You can go on Amazon right now. You could buy it. It's a great read. And remember to keep your eyes open for opportunities to change a moment for just one person. Start today. You'll feel better about it. Not just for the, it's not just going to benefit the person who you're helping. It's going to benefit you too. So lastly, if you like what you heard today, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, please consider sharing this with a friend because we'd love to spread the Uncorking a Story message to as many people as possible. So thank you for listening, and we'll have a new episode up on Thursday.